Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the ultimate scam that's being perpetrated on basically the people in the West and throughout the world. Um, I got the symbol up here for the Communist Party, basically, or the Soviet symbol. And, I want to state this, even though I agree 110% with our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. Our Bill of Rights is part of our Constitution, I realize that a lot of the communist ideology is on the surface sounds good. It does sound good because I, for one, 100% think that the blue collar skilled worker in America is really the backbone of America. It's almost like they're symbolizing here the hammer and sickle. It's the ones that really perform the work that is needed by everybody that are the people that should be elevated the most. Not the professionals. Not the professionals. A lot of times I have a very much of disdain for a lot of the professionals in a lot of the fields because they seem to receive the most reward for the least amount of work. And 99% of them have these large, huge egos that think they're God on earth. But if you think about it, the skilled carpenter is a framer and understands the engineering aspects and the stress loads of houses and buildings, or the mechanic that understands and is the tools and the ability to make mechanical things work correctly, or the electrician that understands electrical systems, loads, and things like that. Those people do require a lot of intelligence, and they actually have to be correct in how they do things, or else it's not going to work. In the case of professionals, and I would actually put probably, I really don't like a lot of people in the medical field, but I really like, if you really want to put the biggest snake oil salespeople out there on a planet, it would probably be psychologists. Now that's a real crock of crap. It's the $200 to $300 an hour, whatever they get, to talk to somebody, to be their friend, and then give them snake oil pills and that type of stuff. They're probably the lowest of the low. They're probably the lowest of the low, and that's really a separate subject. But what I think is coming on here is like we are seeing so much dissatisfaction in the United States. It's like Occupy Wall Street, right? It reminds me of the same type of thing, and I'm not saying in basics like, yeah, Wall Street is crooked. Yeah, I know. They've been crooked for 100 years. They've been doing things wrong for 100 years. I don't want to say that's good, but what you're being led into is a trap. And that is exactly how they trapped the people in Russia. That's how they trapped the people in Eastern Europe back before. Now, I want to point out something here right from the get-go. The Soviet Union did not really fall apart in the way that people think they did, nor did the Eastern Bloc nations when it was all part of the Communist Bloc. It did not fall apart the way people think it did. That is a ruse, and it was been planned. That's how long things are planned. So, I want to point out something else about, I believe it's Major Anatoly Golitsyn. I have the book here. Now, you can actually get this book online and read it. It's pretty dry. You can actually get it online for free. You can look at New Lies for Old. You can look at that for free. It's free distribution, as far as I know. I mean, it's available online. I've seen it in PDFs for free. Now, I actually have the books. I bought the books, and I read them. I read New Lies for Old, which came out 1984. Basically, it was written back in the early 70s and 1980, and it was published in 1984. He predicted so many things that came about, like it was the fall of the Iron Curtain, basically, solidarity in Europe, solidarity in Poland. And I can get into details about Lech Walesa. I don't think that deal was as the way you people think it is, if you remember the solidarity leader in Poland. I'm trying to lead up to something here, so hopefully, but I'm trying to get a little more background on it too, so hopefully you have some patience with this. Major Golitsyn also predicted the reunification of Germany and the Berlin Wall coming down, and if you look back at history, most of the communist leaders at that time, they weren't killed. They just became capitalist all of a sudden. Nothing happened to them. So it was a ruse. He predicted so many things. He said there would be false KGB defectors coming after him. There were disinformation, and there was two generals actually. Both they called them the Olegs. They both had Oleg in their name, and they used to go around to college circuits talking to people for like $150,000 a speech and all this kind of garbage, being paid by some foundation somewhere, probably the Carnegie Peace Foundation or Carnegie Foundation for Peace, and Major Golitsyn had to have his, he had to be in hiding. He had to be in hiding. He couldn't talk out in the open. So, I had a tendency to believe him, not the other guys. And plus, just using my common sense and instincts, if communism fell apart, they would have killed all those bastards. They would have just said, hey, we're capitalists now. Everything's cool. We killed all these people and we tortured all these people. Now we're capitalists. Everything's fine. That wouldn't have happened. So the whole thing was a ruse. Now, this happened, 2 decades ago, back in the late 80s, right? I mean, more than 2 decades ago, right? Practically more than that, right? And, people tend to forget. People tend to forget. Now, I want to point out today that you're being played, and I'm talking about all the Western people are being played. If you're looking for information from the alternative media, and a lot of the biggest alternative media out there is Russia Today. Yeah. They're true. A lot of stuff they say is true. But you know what I find is very interesting? If they're attacking the Western leaders, how come the Western media, the big guys like CNN, Fox, and all this type of stuff, are totally silent about attacking Russia and Putin himself? They could tear this guy up. They could tear him up. First off, Putin is an egomaniac. You could just see this on the freaking surface of his inauguration. I mean, this is like one picture. Like, they must have spent like $1 billion on putting this guy in office for that day, for this ceremony. This was ridiculous. Most Russians don't even have a freaking car to drive around in. And, they're growing their own food to eat. And the population is going backwards because it's like so screwed up you can't even have more people to support, And then they've got this guy out here, like he's saving the planet, with all his pompous ass out here with this ceremony like this. This makes Adolf Hitler's inauguration ceremonies look like nothing. Like nothing. Now, if the Western, Fox Media, CNN, ABC, CBS, and all this garbage, they wanted to tear this guy up, they can do it. And they can totally convince the American public that this guy is totally evil. But they're not doing that, are they? They're not. You know why? Because they're leading you into a freaking trap. And this is something Major Golitsyn said. He says, what he said long range, that with the communists or whatever it is, the Russians, or I'm saying this whole thing, that's like all of them put together, there's going to be total financial collapse in the West. And what they're going to do is introduce a modified type of communism with a human face, like a hybrid capitalist communist system, and they're going to introduce this to the West. That's what you suckers are being led into. That's why I can't stand RT. And they put the most delicious females out there. They got a new one out there, Abby Martin. She's an idiot. Okay? She's a freaking idiot. I don't know if she's actually that conscious of how she's being played, but she's another one out there. She's an idiot. She is being played. Or she's doing it on purpose because she knows she's getting paid, by RT. But it's another one that, yes, the facts might be coming out true about attacking Western leaders, but you're being led into a trap. You're being corralled. And, people that are cheerleading this garbage do not realize it. Do not realize it. I'm against all this shit. But I realize if they really were attacking, just figure this. If they really, were attacking the West has plenty of, the Western media and the banksters, they got plenty of ammunition to attack these guys back. Because you know how many news reporters and stuff like that disappeared or died in accidents for trying to investigate stuff that was going on around Putin? How many? Dozens and dozens and dozens. I don't have the names right in front of me. They're like freaking alphabet soup, left and right. They are. This guy is a gangster. As a matter of fact, a lot of there's like inner circles on the top. You think it's the mafia? It is the mafia. The Italians are nothing compared to these people. They're nothing compared to these people. The Russians are freaking 100 times worse. The guys on the top of Russian are freaking maniacs. They even call themselves the family. This is the kind of garbage people are being saying, oh, our people are so, they are evil. I know it. They are evil. These people are worse. You're being corralled into a freaking trap. It's like, oh no, those people are bad. Go to us. Go this way. It's bullshit. Now, I can tell you right now that I do basically agree in theory with some of the stuff that's even said about, with communism and stuff about, I know it's not no workers' paradise, it's a bureaucracy. And that's 99% of the problem that's going on in the United States. We're loaded down with bureaucracy. People are just allowed to actually do productive work without all the bureaucratic red tape. In other words, you got so many stupid requirements out there that nobody can actually start a small business without, John Stossel put that out there on, if you remember the news recorder, about a girl trying to start a lemonade stand. You can't even do that. You need this kind of permit, you need that kind of permit. You can't do this, you can't serve this to somebody, you can't. It's like a million things. And that's really what's wrong with everything. There's bureaucracy out the yin-yang. Now, I want to also point out something that was predicted. If you think of Golitsyn is not accurate, this guy. Another thing Golitsyn said, that there was going to be a neutral socialist European Union. That was part of the plan, too. See, basically, he's not just exposing what the Russian communist leaders were planning all along. It's basically like what the global elite is planning all along, what he was exposing. Because he better saw what was going on the Russian side, but they're basically all cooperating with each other. Now, knowing human nature, you never know. There could be a twist. They can turn on each other too. But if they turn on each other, guess who's doing the fighting? It's going to be the middle class, skilled, blue-collar worker that's going to be doing the fighting, killing each other off so these guys can figure out who's going to be on top. And that's basically how the game always goes. But my point on this whole thing is, do not trust the alternative media. The alternative media is leading you into a trap. Alex Jones is a pile of crap too. They all are. They all are. And, the best thing I could say is, just stick with what is real. Like silver and gold is real, and I know it's going down today. Almost kind of expected some kind of pullback or whatever. But the game is probably going to be up for the fiat currencies because that is the elite's plan. They're going to introduce something else. They're going to introduce something else. And it's going to be electronic money. Well, to me, I want to avoid all that garbage, basically. And like I said, you got to get down to total independence, but that doesn't mean you have to run to the hills. You don't have to run to the hills. The existing communities that are already in the United States just have to think in a different mode and mind frame as to, not be so dependent upon every little stupid thing that's out there, through the government or whatever the hell it is, but also to produce more on their own. See, back in the 30s, people in the United States were actually far more independent than they are today. Pretty much anybody back then knew how to grow a garden. So one of the things I'm going to interject on most of these videos is going to be more like hands-on how-to videos, and particularly a lot of health videos, because health and longevity is number one. Could you imagine a person that could be 150 years old that is like 25 years old? Now you figure this, if that's an active person that had a long productive lifespan, that in other words, the accumulated knowledge of this person would be beyond belief. So it's usually the problem with people is that as they age, they become less productive because their physical skills aren't there, their mental skills aren't there, but their experience is there, and you can't replace that. So I think health is actually a number one way that we can actually bring up a lot of the real productivity in a nation. Because when people feel healthy and are more alert, they actually start doing better things on their jobs, not just more productivity of the same way they were doing something, but actually find better ways to do things. So, in a lot of ways, when the communists talk about the workers, that the workers should be elevated, I agree with that. To tell you the truth, I agree with that. The big problem is with communists is that they're a pile of bureaucrats and there's a bunch of asshole dictators up there on the top that tell you how it should be done while they're sitting back doing nothing. That's really what's wrong with them. And they're just as bad as or worse than any professional snake oil salespeople we have in the United States. So, but this is my basic message. Do not trust the alternative media. The bigger they are, the more you should not trust them. It's because you have, when you're talking, you're talking about Russia today, I definitely wouldn't trust that crap for nothing. Because if you look at Putin, I don't know. I just can't believe that people think he's against the Western elite in a real fashion. He probably is because he's out for number one, but he is an elitist to the max. He makes a lot of the Western elite look like paupers. So he's not a good alternative. That's what I'm saying. He's not. And if you go back in history, there was many things that were ignored by our media. Even in the 30s when they were starving out the Ukrainians, right? They had a mass starvation. New York Times reporter, I forgot his name. I want to say it. I think it starts with an R, but I want to say it, but I don't want to say it right now because I probably forgot it. But he was reporting that there was maybe some minor food shortages, but there was no mass starvation. In other words, they made it look good. And that was what? From our Western media. So I'm saying is, our Western media, a lot of times, do not attack, the Eastern, whatever it is, the Russian or whatever it is, the elite, because they're in cahoots with each other. That's what it is. They're in cahoots with each other. They can attack Putin left and right and make it stick. They can make him look like the worst evil bastard going easily because it's true. Easily. But they don't, because his news organization, Russia Today, is being presented as an alternative to the American people. And American people are buying into it hook, line, and sinker. So this is exactly the same kind of game that went along, and it's exactly how these bureaucratic communist assholes got in charge and got to be able to run roughshod over everybody, because they had people running from the frying pan right into the fire. So I say, I don't know. I know there's a way around all this bullshit, but first you got to understand how the game's being played on you. Don't trust the alternative media. And, I will agree with the communists in principle on some things. The blue-collar worker, the skilled craftsman, should be the backbone of the nation, and they should be the most elevated, most respected in the nation, because they do all the work. Yeah, Wall Street, communist bureaucrats, and everything else, they don't do the work. We know that.